Jonathan Lord, we're on your item 4.
Okay, thank you very much. I can't see the slides though. Are the slides being shared?
I can share them at our end if that would help.
That would help, thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon all. Thank you very much for inviting us today. I think you know who I am, but I'll introduce myself again. Jonathan Lord, Senior Community Engagement and Interface Manager for HS2 Phase 1 North, which includes Staffordshire section of Phase 1. I'll hand over to Jason Pacey.
Hi, good afternoon all. Yeah, Jason Pacey, so I work for HS2. I'm the Head of Community and Stakeholder Engagement for the Phase 2A section of the route.
And Matt Hadlington.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Hadlington. I'm the Senior Business Engagement Manager for HS2.
Thanks, Matt. And Rebecca, please.
Hi, yeah, I'm Rebecca Young. I'm the Skills and Employment Strategy Manager at HS2.
Thanks all. I'll just go over the agenda to clarify what we are intending to cover. Very high level project update for the Hs2 project, some key milestones that we've announced recently. High level summary update for the Phase 1 programme, the same for Phase 2A, business engagement update, skills, employment and education update, and an update on the CEF-BLEF awards, the Hs2 awards that have been recently announced within Staffordshire for both Phase 1 and Phase 2A, followed by a Q&A session. So I'll just move on to the Hs2 project update. I thought I'd just focus on 4 main areas that have been announced by the project recently. The first one from the Minister, who committed to that the HS2's high-speed trains will be powered by 100% zero carbon electricity generation from day one. This is part of HS2's net zero carbon plan, which was published just before Christmas. And this commitment plays a key part in this aim and to make the project net zero carbon from 2035, alongside with targets of diesel-free construction sites and major reductions in carbon emissions from the steel and concrete used to actually build the railway. Also, I thought to focus on the graduate scheme, which was launched again late last year. This is the graduate scheme for 2022 and builds on the success of our previous graduate schemes. This is a search for more talented graduates to join our programme. 16 places are on offer on a 2-year programme located within our HS2 offices and our main works construction partners offices as well. And finally, you may be aware, again, that late last year, we announced the rolling stock contract has been awarded for 54 high-speed trains to a joint venture between Hitachi Rail and Alstom. The contract will support 2,500 jobs across the UK with trains built in Derby and Crewe, which is just obviously over the border from Staffordshire, which hopefully will support jobs in the Midlands and beyond. And I think it's the first time in the UK railway history that a very high-speed train will be built on these shores, which is good news for the UK. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, a high-level focus on the programme of works for Staffordshire for the Phase 1 team. The focus this year will be very much on the construction of the haul roads, access roads and plank crossings. Once these are operational, these will be designed to take as much traffic off the highway network as possible. Setting up of satellite compounds and laydown areas will continue. The commencement of earthworks and continuation of surveys that are taking place across the county for Phase 1. The sort of big project pieces or big pieces of infrastructure that works will continue on include the Street A cutting, which is the 2.8 kilometre section of the line below the existing ground level, which involves major work to the existing A38, the southbound off-slip to Street A, and the South Staffordshire Railway line. And the focus will be on the slip, the off-slip road during 2022, which will include closures at some point, but obviously this is to be confirmed, and this will be communicated to the wider travelling public and local community once confirmed. Works will also continue on the A5. This is on the A5 near Hints to prepare for the line under the A5, and this will mean that there will be traffic management and lane closures on the A5 as we deliver the work safely. The other focus is on dismantling of properties. You've probably seen this reported in the local media. Some key buildings have been demolished or in the process of being demolished. And I think the key issue to raise from this, obviously, we're aware that these are sensitive buildings in the main, and that the hardcore from the buildings are designed to be recycled and reused elsewhere on the project. So we're trying to be as sustainable as possible as part of our wider commitment. I'll move on to Jason for 2A, if I may.
Thanks, John. I'm sure that many people will be familiar with this type of Gantt chart. We showed you something very similar for phase 2A when we met with you in July last year. And if I'm fair, very little has changed from an overall programme perspective. We're nearing the end of our ground investigation works now. I think by the end of March, it will all have finished. Whilst the vast majority of the route has been surveyed, we're now going back and filling the gaps, as it were, where we were unable to get access last year. Utility diversions are well underway. National Grid are active both on gas pipeline diversion work and overhead power lines within the county. So they are continuing apace. And in the next few weeks, we expect Balfour Beatty to begin securing the sites that they need for the early environmental works that they're doing along the whole of the line of the route. And then later this year, we are expecting the construction to actually start around the Woodend Lane area, around Lichfield, and then junction 15 of the M6. There has been quite a bit of survey work being done to inform the design over the past few months, but construction itself will start later this year. And then looking a little bit further afield, in the summer, we expect to be awarding contracts for the two advanced civils works packages. So there's a north and a south package with a combined value of 240 million, for which we announced towards the end of last year that there are 6 bidders. And then in the summer, we are expecting to announce and award the contract for the design and delivery partner. So that's the £500 million contract for which there are currently 3 bidders in the running. So that's my very brief phase 2A update. I think I'm handing over to Matt now.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so just building on what Jason said, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on where we are with some of the procurement and some of the potential local business opportunities. So across the kind of wider project on phase 1, as Jonathan said, main work civils contracts are awarded and things are well underway there. And where we are in that space in terms of those main work civils contractors procurement program is they've spent most of the last year putting in place their sort of their key delivery partners, I think is what they would call them. So each of those big joint ventures now has in place around sort of 10, 15 key suppliers who will be delivering really important elements of the scope. So over the next kind of 12 months or so, we expect that those key delivery partners will be starting to go out into the market, down through the supply chain a little bit, and this is the sort of time where we expect some of the opportunities for smaller SMEs and local businesses to start to emerge. And most of the contracts kind of let to date are relatively large in scale, although there obviously are some smaller ones as well. We're trying to be as open as we possibly can around who's doing what work where on the project. So you're able to go to our Hs2 website, our supply chain pages, and on there you can see awarded tier 1 contracts and awarded tier 2 contracts. As we start to get more information coming in from our supply chain, we're putting that on the website with contact details where possible. So we're encouraging businesses to go direct to people already working on the project to understand a little bit more about opportunities. Similarly, as contracts begin to be let, they will be put on our tender portal and compete for. It's a contractual obligation for our supply chain to put opportunities on there. So if a business in the Staffordshire area is interested in tendering for work, that's really the place to go. In terms of the 2A contract, Jason touched on it already, and I see I have a typo, even though I checked these slides myself last night. The enabling civils work contract was awarded to Kier earlier last year in July. And as Jason said, we're expecting to make some progress on the advanced civils work contract this year as well as an invitation to tender for the 2A design and delivery partner. And Jason also mentioned that main civils work procurement will be looking to start in the earlier part of this year. When that starts to happen, we'll be communicating that to people. There will be an event which should mark the release of that procurement process. It's a big piece of work, as Jason said, £500 million. So we're keen to kind of open it up as much as we possibly can. John also already mentioned the rolling stock contract, and we're also in a position at the moment where all of our station contracts are in place apart from the one at interchange. So our supply chain is really starting to take shape now, with those key delivery partners in place underneath the main works contractors. And I think over the next year, we're going to start to see a really steep upward curve in the number of businesses working on the project. At the moment, the value is very, very high, but they're a relatively small number of businesses. But over the next year, I think the value of the contracts will start to fall, but the quantity of businesses involved in the projects will start to really ramp up. And if you just move on to the next slide, John, or Jason, sorry. Yeah, and there are businesses already benefiting from the project. As I say, the value is very high at the moment and the numbers are relatively low, but even in terms of what we think is a relatively low number, there are already over 2,200 businesses have delivered work on the project for HS2, and about 3/4 of these are SMEs. And we also know that local businesses are benefiting when you do some postcode analysis of that 2,500. It also businesses, about 1,000 of them are in counties aligned to the line of the new railway. So local businesses are definitely benefiting. It's also worth saying that number is about key contracts. We capture what we would call key contracts. So it probably doesn't give us the whole picture in terms of the big number of businesses that are already working on the project. And these are just what we would class as sort of critical. So that number is probably a lot higher. In Staffordshire itself, there are about 80 businesses currently working in the project, with around 85% of these SMEs. One of those is Wardle Armstrong, based in Stoke. They've delivered a big section of our environmental works as part of phase 1 enabling. Our chief exec went to see them towards the end of the last year, and the project's had a huge impact on them, and they've been able to hire more people. They've also done some upskilling in specific areas, as well as innovating a little bit in terms of the way they do things. So the project is starting to have an impact, and I think that's only going to increase over the next 12 months or so as more and more businesses start to get involved in the project. And if we just move on, in terms of our engagement and our work to kind of promote opportunities and make sure people know how they can get involved, we continue to do an awful lot of work with business organisations in the county. We now have a regular update which goes out through the organisations there, and they push that out across their various channels. That includes contract announcements, updates on what's happening in the area with the project, and constant kind of provision of links so that people can go and tell us about what they do and find out more about how to get involved. We support that kind of regular flow of information with webinars and events, and we've got 2 coming up with Staffordshire Chamber this month on the 20th and 27th of January, as well as working with the Growth Hub 2, which Rebecca will talk about, I think, as well, to do a big kind of county-wide event which will pick up skills, jobs and business opportunities as well. And we're committed to carrying on working with partners as much as we possibly can to get information out there about how to get involved. And one of the things that we'd like to do this year, as well as just promoting opportunities for contracts, is we're going to be running a series of programs which are focused on upskilling for businesses as well. So when a project like HS2 comes to town, if you like, I think there's a lot of focus on contracts and value and money, but actually there's an awful lot of expertise in some of these tier 1 and tier 2 businesses that are working on the project, that we want to share with businesses. We want to raise the bar a little bit as well in terms of how the construction industry works. So we're running a series of events over the next 12 months which look to do that. And that's kind of where we are with the business engagement at the moment. And I'll hand over to Rebecca for the jobs and skills piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so I'd like to concentrate on two particular areas of skills employment and education. The first is about the work that we're doing with the Stoke and Staffordshire LEP and your officers that are part of that. Hs2 was invited to join their skills advisory panel back in March 2021, which we did, and we've been meeting with that group since then. And that's really to provide a steer on the type of skills employment education activity that Hs2 is involved with, the work that we've done to date on phase 1. And as part of those discussions, it was the LEP's idea to run a webinar, which is planned for March of this year, to cover a lot of information about what the Hs2 Skills Employment Education Strategy is to a broad audience, so that they can get a better feel for what we're doing in this space. Our job brokerage model, which is supporting underrepresented and disadvantaged individuals into the job opportunities that the Hs2 programme brings. We're also going to cover some other activities that we get involved with, which is in a publication that came out in August called Building Skills to Deliver. Within that webinar, we'll also go over the timeline. And we're also involving our contractor Balfour Beatty Vinci, which works in the south of the county, so that they can share some examples of the types of work that they've been doing in this particular space. So the work that they've been doing to support apprentices onto the programme, work that they've been doing with local communities to get unemployed people into the jobs that they're creating, as well as other areas such as providing placement opportunities. So a kind of a big piece of work covering lots of different elements of skills and employment to inform local organisations. And then there's some discussions about having 2 further follow-up workshops, which again will help organisations to look at areas about how they can support our skills needs. So the work that Matt's just talked about in the supply chain, how can they help to promote the job opportunities that will be within the county area and beyond, and how they can help to promote career opportunities to young people. So that brings me on to the Hs2 Education Program, and we work within the sort of secondary school education space, and we have just tendered our contract for that piece of work. Only just in November did we award the contracts, and there will be some new workshops taking place in the Staffordshire area. We have allocated 12 workshops for Key Stage 3 students, so that's students that are in Year 7 to 9. And the workshops will be for a whole day. They can involve up to 60 students, and it's very much about engaging them in the whole kind of life of an infrastructure project like Hs2. So, for example, they will be designing a futuristic railway station. They'll be looking at sort of engineering around tunnels, and looking at designing a rail network during that day. The organisation delivering that is an organisation called the Small Peace Trust, very experienced in delivering educational activity. But picking up on Matt's point, whilst not delivering in the Staffordshire area, one of the companies who have won some of that work is a Tamworth-based business called Learn by Design. And I think it kind of demonstrates that the supply chain cuts across all kinds of different areas of work within Hs2. Obviously, you'd automatically think about kind of construction supply chain, but this is an example of the breadth of work that Hs2 does, and where a local business has benefited from one of our contracts. So those are the kind of key areas that I wanted to focus on today in this space. Thank you. Over to John, I think. Oh, you're on mute, John.
Still on mute, John.
You would have thought after how many years of doing Teams meetings, I would know how to come off mute. Apologies. Just a quick update on the HS2 SEF Community Environmental Fund and the Business Local Economy Fund update for projects that have been awarded in Staffordshire from both Phase 1 and Phase 2A. So we're 14 projects so far been approved, totaling 668,000 across Staffordshire for both phases. They're on the interactive map. There's a screenshot there which shows the map which is available. You can go in and have a look at the detail of the projects that have been successfully awarded funding to find out more about the projects themselves in Staffordshire. There was a recent one awarded in Street A just before Christmas, and I think there's been one awarded for Phase 2A very recently as well. So it's really good to see these projects coming on board across Staffordshire. And again, as part of our ongoing engagement with communities and stakeholders, we're always pushing them as well. So again, from a members perspective, obviously, please feel free to do the same. And if you have any questions about them, obviously, please come back to Jason or myself on those. But really good to see that Staffordshire is getting a good share of the funding for both. But let's carry on doing that. Next slide, please, Jason. Thank you. And that comes to the end of our slides, and it's over to you, councillors, for any questions to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan and team. It's good to see you all again. Before I invite anyone for questions, can I remind you of the note that's on your agendas to confine your questions and debate to education, skills and prosperity only. I really don't want to go down the debate of in my area this. So we've got Reverend Metcalfe first.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to pick up on the education programme, if I may, please. The workshops that are going to be carried out in schools, will they in any sense be linked in with the curriculum at the schools in terms of liaising with the teachers, working in with existing programmes of work and building on into that, following on the day programmes that you're running?
Yeah, thank you. A really good question. Yes, they are linked to what's called the Gatsby Benchmark, which is something that schools are using to support their careers work. So through the Careers and Enterprise Company, schools look to develop their capacity around this Gatsby benchmark, and so one of those benchmarks is about linking into the curriculum, how well the school does that. And certainly through this programme there are links into the curriculum, and also importantly links into showing the students how they're using their transferable skills as well. So very much about how are they using their team working skills or their collaboration skills, their problem solving skills. So so the programme is very much sort of designed around that, so the students can use that experience to take away with them. And there's a framework that's often used not in all schools, but in a lot of schools, called the Skills Builder framework. So we're trying to ensure that that those schools that use that framework, those students can take something away and add to the work that they're doing around their own personal skills.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's a Prosperous question. You mentioned you're going to be letting the £500 million contract for Phase 2A. Now, I appreciate it takes a very, very large company to take on such a large contract, but what assurance do we have that whoever wins that will be employing people preferably local to Staffordshire, but at least people based in England? because the last thing we really need is lots of people from outside the area coming in when Staffordshire people could be doing those sorts of jobs. Thank you very much.
I don't know if Jason, if you want to start and I could pick up on some elements, or Rebecca on the
would
jobs
pick up on the
piece.
element as
I think
well.
all of us could probably comment on that.
Matt, you kick off.
Yeah, so just purely from the contract side, obviously it will be, it's an open and fair tender process. It has to be like that. And as you say, you're quite right. For a contract of that size, it's likely that there are, you know, a number of kind of household name organisations or a combination of large construction firms that are in the sort of space to be able to deliver on that size. Rebecca can probably talk more about requirements within contracts. But one of the reasons that those organisations would be successful in a bid is that they would be able to provide resilience, certainty, efficiency, on time, on budget, alongside a load of other requirements. So we do consider how they might use the local supply chain, but it's very much a balanced scorecard in terms of how those contracts are assessed and awarded. So it's a combination of factors as opposed to any one thing that means they'd get the work. But Rebecca, is there something on the specifics around employment?
Yeah, sure. So with any contract that's over £10 million, and obviously this one is a lot more than that, there are skills, employment and education contractual requirements put into the contract. So Matt said that, you know, when we're assessing the contracts, you know, we look at a whole range of things. They have to demonstrate their past experience in skills, employment, education space. But when it actually comes to the delivery of the contract, the value of the contract determines how many skills and employment education outputs the organisation has to deliver. So with a larger value contract, they're expected to deliver, you know, larger numbers, and the types of activities that they can choose from, and there's a menu of activities that they can choose from, include apprenticeship starts, workless job starts, supporting adults into work placement opportunities, 4-week work placement, so substantial work placements. It includes school engagement, and it also includes activities such as gaining certain professional status qualifications. So through those sort of levers, if you like, what we're requiring the supply chain or the company or joint venture to do is to very much sort of operate in the space of supporting the local communities into the opportunities that are provided. So you know, for example, some of the work that Balfour Beatty Vinci have done, they have worked with local community organisations to identify individuals that might be interested in work placements. Those work placements may then lead to an apprenticeship opportunity or to a job opportunity. So you know, we can't mandate. You know, there's certain laws around, you know, saying where people can and can't, you know, work from, but we certainly, through our contractual requirements, use those levers to make sure that that the contractors are focusing on those key outputs that will support, you know, the local community to access the jobs and skills opportunities. I don't know if Jason wants to add anything, or John, from experience of previous contracts.
I was going to say anecdotally that, you know, on phase one, you know, those levers are working, aren't they? You know,
yes.
You look at the jobs, you know, the numbers are kind of there, and it's things are happening, aren't they? It's early days, but
it's early days. Yeah, I mean, Department for Transport has set the project a target of 2,000 apprenticeship starts, so that's brand new apprentices starting on the programme, and we're already over 650, I think was the last reported figure. So the supply chain are doing what they're being asked to do, and certainly in the workless job start space, where we're focusing on underrepresented, disadvantaged groups. Again, the figures for workless job starts are around about the sort of the 800 mark. You know, there's good evidence that they are doing these things that we want them to do.
Thanks both. There's nothing more I wanted to add. That's very comprehensive. So Councillor Hudson, I hope that provides a kind of clarity that you wanted.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I was very impressed when we went to see the training school for HS2, which I thought had tremendous opportunities. But I thought in some ways we were missing an opportunity. I'm very enthusiastic about Staffordshire University, and I declare an interest because I'm a doctor of the university. But when we start to look at how we could more effectively develop our training opportunities, it seems to me that if we were looking at short courses and looking at almost going back to the old sandwich course days from when I was a youth, there would be tremendous opportunities to award degrees to people who were training to work on HS2. Not only would that be a benefit because people would have a qualification for the work that they were doing, but in addition to that, Chairman, they would have a lifetime legacy, and that would leave behind not just people that will be working on HS2, but on much wider projects. You know, we're going into a period of massive building and development, and it seems to me that we have an opportunity to incorporate those opportunities into something which is a recognised qualification. I'm somewhat surprised, Chairman, when I go back again to my youth in Birmingham, that we used to have a college that specialised in building and construction, and that now is just a general college of Aston University and doesn't do anything at all with construction. So I do think we have a great opportunity, and I think that we need to grab hold of it with both hands, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I thought you were going to say it was now knocked down and derelict because it was so long ago. I'm only joking. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, Chair. My question is about prosperity and community engagement. So we're all aware that there's going to be a big impact on Staffordshire by HS2, but there are a lot of local communities who won't be directly affected by HS2, but they would benefit greatly from being able to apply for grants to look at projects that will enhance the quality of life in those areas. Are they able to apply to you for grants, and where is sort of the cut-off point for that?
Do you want me to respond to that on behalf of the team? I've mentioned the CEF and BLEF, that's the Community Environmental Fund, primarily for communities, and that's aimed for communities who are impacted as a result of construction activities within their locality. So the focus is always going to be on communities which are impacted by what we're doing on the ground. So there's no geographic boundary in terms of how far from the line of route that communities can apply for, if that makes sense, but there still has to be, as part of their evidence and submission, that they are impacted as a result of constructions. That's the priority. They'll always receive funding. So if there are communities that aren't, it's going to be quite challenging for them to obviously successfully apply for that fund because of the way it's been set up on that basis. So I think in terms of the eligibility and the guidance criteria, eligibility criteria for the funds are on Groundwork UK's website, and they're administering the fund on behalf of HS2 and the DFT. So it's quite clear on that in terms of demonstrating that you are, as a community, affected by HS2 construction related works.
Councillor Flunder.
Thank you, Chair. And just for the reference, I, as a Aston graduate, 3 times over in engineering, David Smith, I'm afraid that you're slightly wrong in some of your statements, and we do an awful lot of construction, mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, etc., etc., etc. There's about 7 or 8 different engineering faculties and everything else there. So I just wanted to rectify that, and be warned, Aston University students get everywhere. So just all around the world, there's quite a famous scientific-based university, and it's very well good representation. And I just wanted to put you right on that. So thank you very much. My comments really about thanking HS2 and the representative that came to the site visit that we did at Balfour Beatty Flannery Training Depot. It's not directly related to HS2, but certainly the drivers, and as we discovered within our own team, I think you're going to have to educate us a little bit better. And this, again with David, I think you came off the track twice during the actual training sessions that we had on some of the virtual tools and things that are down there. It's a very good way of looking at upgrading people's education and also job opportunities. And I think that those of us that went were quite impressed by the whole thing. I think there is, as someone has said, and David has said, that linked into universities or colleges throughout the whole of the thing would be a beneficial step from that. And I think there is some link there that we do need to work on. But the trip itself and everything we did there was very, very good to see. And I could see that the local community and the people around the area were definitely benefiting from opportunities that training and that particular training hub at Junction 9 was actually giving. So I don't know whether do you want to say anything?
I wanted you to be quiet on that.
Oh, right.
It's a secret location.
Oh, sorry, secret location, please erase. Right. But let's just to say thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that we can come maybe sometime and see the Apprentice Hub down in Birmingham sometime, if that was at all possible. I think a few of us would like to come and see what you're doing there at the apprenticeship stages as well. Thank you.
Has anybody else got any more questions?
Don't give any games away.
Councillor Metcalfe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is just a practical one. I couldn't read all the detail on the slides. No. Would it be possible, please, to distribute these afterwards? Thank you.
Yeah, those I couldn't read the www dot bit on the end. It was too small for me, and I'm sat right next to it. Philippa.
I was just wondering what opportunities would be offered out for education for primary school children, because it's focused on secondary and further education afterwards. But if you catch a child at STEM level at a primary school, it would be your future then for your business. I just wondered what angle you'd got for that with children.
Yeah, we've got a number of resources on the HS2 website aimed at teachers that can be used in the curriculum. We also in the past have attended some large scale events, so the Big Bang Fair that's been held at the NEC in the past, and that's then gone to sort of a virtual platform. And so we do often capture primary school children at that point. We have in the past had primary school programmes that we've engaged primary schools with, but for the moment we're focusing on secondary school in in the area of STEM. We do other things in relation to primary schools, but yeah, there are teacher resources available on the website as well.
Could I have the link for the teaching resources? That would be great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
thank you.
That's brilliant, thank you. I have just 2 requests, if I may. If you can send us the link to the webinar that you're going to do in March, I'll be interested to sit in on that one. And the other one is, which schools in Staffordshire are you delivering the workshops? Because if there's one in my area, I'd like to be able to pop into that to see how it's delivered and what's being delivered, if that's possible.
Yeah, we're not there yet on the actual schools. We've just started to go out to there's 12 schools that we're targeting because of either a high percentage of children with free school meals or English as an additional language, etc. So I'm sure through John, once we've got that list finalised, and Jason, we can let you have that.
That's brilliant, thank you. If there are no further questions, then we'll end the HS2 report and move on. And I think, are we in agreeable that this comes back in another 6 months? Yes, is the committee agreeable with that? So if we don't see you before, we'll see you in 6 months' time, team. And stay safe in everything that you're doing. You're now free to leave, or you can stay and listen if you wish.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you all,
you.
councillors. Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is along the same lines: aspiration, future economy and enterprise all-party working group 6-month review of action plan implementation. And I believe that Philip White and Darryl Ayres are online. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, Chair.
Good afternoon.
Over to you.
Right, okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So the committee will have in front of them our update in terms of actions on the implementing the recommendations of the all-party working group. It's quite extensive, so I'm not going to try and rehearse the whole thing. Otherwise, we'd be here for quite a long time this afternoon. But I think that the overview of it is that we found the report really useful in helping to shape some of the key programs that we've been delivering and bringing forward through their development phases over the last 6 months. So the key highlights within that, I think, are how we've used the report to influence the development of the Staffordshire story and the We Are Staffordshire brand, which I hope will have been prominent to all of the members of the committee. It's been a tremendously active new brand over the last 12 months, and I'll just take the opportunity to pay tribute to the officers who've been involved in rolling that out. They've done a great job. So we've had a program of events throughout 2021 under that We Are Staffordshire brand, and particularly using the Staffordshire ambassadors, who are a group of handpicked individuals who represent the best of Staffordshire and really embody that aspiration message that we want to capture. And they're people from all walks of life, including business people, particularly people who started up their own businesses in Staffordshire, but also people from the world of academia, charities, the public sector, and others. So a lot of the elements of the report, particularly early on, relate to the work of that organisation. We've also done a great deal of outreach in terms of encouraging aspiration. Again, particularly encouraging people to get involved in starting up their own businesses. One thing I'll highlight to the committee that I'm particularly proud of is our Ignite programme, which is working with college leavers to encourage them to develop their entrepreneurial skills and indeed to set up their own businesses at a very young age. That's a programme that we will be rolling out into sixth forms as well over the next 12 months. We've also been financially supporting business startups through our new business startup loans and our rural startup loans. That second point being something that was highlighted by the committee, that aspiration needs to be spread across all of the different settings in Staffordshire, and that's one of the number of rural focused initiatives that we've taken. And also making sure that there are places for people to go and do business and to deliver that aspiration. And there I'd highlight the new enterprise centre, which will be opening in the Shire Hall in June 2022, part of the regeneration of that building. But we've also got a new enterprise hub, which has been agreed for the new Burton Library. We have a new rural enterprise centre, which we are working on in Stafford Borough. We're working with ENGIE on the Rugeley Power Station site to create an enterprise centre there. And also through the town deal in Newcastle under Lyme, we're working on creating new units at our enterprise centre in Nutton. So a great deal of activity there, which is particularly important. Although we've all been quite used to doing things on screens for a while, the world will get back to physically meeting and physically doing business in places of work very soon, we think. So it's good that we're doing all of that. We also have had a particular focus in terms of making sure that we have a sustainable approach to aspiration and to developing business opportunities and opportunities for people to engage in these areas in a sustainable way, and that's very much a green thread that has run through all of our work. So those are a few highlights. I don't know if Darryl wants to mention anything else in addition to that. Otherwise, I'll hand back to you, Chair.
I'm happy to, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, please carry on.
I was just going to point out to the committee that the report you've got in the pack includes, under item 5, includes an appendices that we've pulled together for you that sets out all the recommendations from the working group, and then on the right hand side of that sets out how we're progressing against each of those to give you a really good feel for how it's all moving forward. And Philip summarised brilliantly all those key activities, particularly around the aspirational piece and the work we've been doing around brand Staffordshire and building an ambassador network, all of which were key recommendations. This also falls neatly into item 6 on the agenda, where we'll give a more a broader update on what we're doing around supporting the economy, that 6-monthly update we bring here. So I just wanted to point that out, Chair, just to make sure everyone's aware that in that appendix it does give you a line-by-line breakdown of all the activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Darryl. Questions from members? Councillor Flunder.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Just want to say, in terms of the startup ideas, the 7 different projects you've got there, I think that's a tremendous amount of work that you're doing to support new businesses starting up around the county. I, like some other members here, probably do read the economic bulletin that you send out, which I think is also a fantastic piece of work that you're doing to keep us all up to date with what's going on. And along with the networking and ambassador work as well, and the mentoring, I think all that is really good. I do have some questions, if that's possible, about the rural strategy, which is coming up, which will affect obviously areas such as mine, but you're not meant to be married to it, but rural areas in general. I just wondered if ourselves could help out a little bit of that. Some members within the rural areas could maybe be included within the process to look at ways that you might be able to pick up the strategy in the future particularly for hospitality and tourism, which has been mentioned at various meetings I've been at as well. With regard to the opening of the Shire Hall Hub, I find that is fantastic news in terms of having somewhere where people can go and bounce ideas around and maybe start up small businesses with support. I was just hoping also to try and make a rural version of that somewhere small on a slightly smaller scale around the county, linked across potentially to community hubs and the idea of mentoring and ambassadors within the rural areas. I think that would be something that I know that Brown Edge, for example, Parish Council have already mentioned that they wouldn't mind having a couple of work desks within a development that they're doing, etc. The last question I have is about branding. I do see that it's a great piece of work that you're doing with regard to branding and letting the business community, shall we say, know about the work. I'm just wondering, is that really for public use as well? In other words, to sell the county towards the general public, or is it more of an internal concept that you have at the moment and you'll be expanding that out to more general ideas in the future? So I think I've got 3 or 4 questions there if anyone wants to answer those. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take those if you'd like, Chair.
Yes, please, Philip.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So on the rural strategy, yes, we will be seeking member engagement on that, and it may be that that's through that committee, but we can discuss that either now or at our next triangulation meeting. But we will want that. We have already taken so we've held some stakeholder events with rural businesses and other representatives of organisations that operate in our rural areas, but that strategy is still under development. One of the key strands of that, though, is looking at key rural service centres. So those areas of the county that particularly serve rural communities and serve businesses. And as a strand of that, we are working on the development of a first rural enterprise centre, and that's very much a pilot, so that we can work out how you do that in a rural setting. But that work is underway, and what we're interested in doing there is looking at a blend of something which captures business activity, but also some innovation activity as well. So that's something that we can talk to you about again in the future as well. Forgive me, Councillor Flunder, what were the other points that you wanted covering?
One was about the future work on the branding of the county and its development as an economic powerhouse, as it were, and yep. Also a little bit on the hospitality and tourism. They're the other two. Thank you. Yeah,
that's absolutely fine. So on the branding, it is very much global branding. It's not an internally focused thing. The We Are Staffordshire brand, and then the Staffordshire Ambassadors Initiative is entirely outward facing, and it's been very much pushed out to the wider world, and the engagement particularly that we have in those events is very broad. So there are an awful lot of people from different walks of life who are getting involved in those. We do have a particular focus on the business community, because one of the key objectives of that We Are Staffordshire work is to encourage more people to invest in Staffordshire, move to Staffordshire, or to work in Staffordshire. So that has been a strong focus, and we've done a couple of, just as an example of that, a couple of roundtable events with Insider, who are probably the most prominent business publication in the UK regions, promoting Staffordshire as a place to do those things. So it's very much outward focused. In terms of the hospitality sector, I think Darryl's indicated the appendix that goes into some granular detail about the work that we're doing, and one of those areas, item 10 in the appendix, is a focus on the hospitality sector. So we've been particularly there working through the Growth Hub to make sure that businesses in the hospitality sector as an area of focus are really strongly signposted towards the relevant business support that they have, which is principally through the additional restrictions grant, and principally that funding has been directed through district and borough councils, which is the way that government wanted it to be done. But the Growth Hub is the area where they pull together the opportunities that we have. So, for example, the fully funded apprenticeships and workforce training, and some of the business grants towards sort of change in business operations that we can offer as the county council. Hopefully that answers the questions, but happy to add in anything more that you want.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Chairman, I very much commend what we're doing, so I don't want what I'm saying to be critical, but only an anxiety. I made a note here, once the door closes, and when you've got that moment when you've had everybody around you supporting you and doing all the sort of things to help you get up and get running, once that door closes and you're actually on your own as a one-man business, then that is the most nightmarish time. That's when the sleepless nights come, and that's when all the people who said, oh, we'll come to you as soon as you start, don't come. And you then end up with this absolutely horrendous nightmare. And I've been there and got the T-shirt, so I know exactly what's involved and what comes out of it. And so I suppose the concern is that you suddenly have people, because you don't come to the table without experience of your own. I found when I was starting that the people that wanted to come and tell me how to run my business knew less about it than I did. And so I think that you can find that unnerves you. What you need is to feel that you've got an ongoing support in your business, that you've got people helping you and moving you forward, because it's a hard, lonely world out there until you've got yourself up and running. And maybe you won't get yourself up and running. Maybe you fall by the wayside, or maybe you can be a tremendous success. You know, I found that I went through some bad times, and you find also that you've got companies that go bust on you because someone starting a new business can't always start with blue chip customers. They start with companies that maybe are a bit dodgy, and they will want to use your credit. And then if they go bust on you, it's, oh, I'm ever so sorry, you know, we didn't see that happening. So it's a very unnerving business going into something on your own. And I would really want to make absolutely sure that we are supporting people once the door closes. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, shall I take that, Chair?
Yes, please, Philip.
Yeah, great, thanks. Thanks for the question, Councillor Smith. I mean, one of the things that you and I have in common is that we both set up our own businesses. So I know exactly what you mean as well. Typically, I think the experience of most people who set up businesses is that they understand their core business very well. So in my case, it's a recruitment company. I know how to recruit people very well, but understanding those other things that make a business work and those stresses and strains that come from running a business whilst also doing the day job is something that is quite tough. And so an awareness of that is really important. In terms of our support for those businesses, I've mentioned the Growth Hub previously. I know that the committee are all very familiar with that. That is a wonderful resource for smaller businesses to draw from. But in addition to that, we have rolled out over the last 12 months, and it is again mentioned in the appendices, a support package with the Federation of Small Business, where we, along with our district and borough partners, are funding memberships of the FSB for small businesses that want to participate in that. And they're another great organisation that provide that wraparound support in all of those areas that somebody won't necessarily have knowledge of when they set up their own business. The other thing that I will just highlight, although it's actually, I don't think it strays off the purpose of the report, but it's part of our forward business plan. One of our priorities for the economy and skills area of the county council going forwards is step up businesses. So there's been a considerable focus already on startups, and we know the reasons for that. Staffordshire is a very good place to start a business. All of the data shows that, but we have too few businesses that start up. But that next stage of development, where businesses go from being a micro business to being small, and at the smaller end of medium, it is something that we want to give an increased focus to. And there are the elements of that are a little bit different. It's about positioning your business for growth. It's often about making sure that you've got the right sort of premises, particularly if you're in engineering and manufacturing. And that's an area that we're going to be doing more work on. So we want more of those businesses that do successfully start up and thrive, but are currently small, to become bigger employers and bigger contributors to the Staffordshire economy. Hopefully that answers the question, Councillor Smith, but happy to come back with anything else you want.
Councillor Smith, are you happy with the response? Thank you. I've just got one for you, Philip, just on item 2 on the timetable that says about the digital platform. How is that panning out with obviously less people being in an office environment, more people working online, including ourselves, and how is that giving us cause for concern, or is that working better? Just some more information on that line, please.
That's absolutely fine. So I might need to defer to Darryl for a bit of the techie detail. Look at his face, contracting horror now. But the big picture is that we've coped pretty well with that move to digital, as we have in other areas of the business, like adult education, where we switched to entirely online. But we've got another big step to go with that, which is the jobs brokerage program, which is mentioned in there, which is a big part of how we're spending the additional £1 million of budget that was granted to economy and skills. And that is all about recognising this switch in the economy, where we've gone from a concern about sustaining employment to a concern about actually matching people up with all of the job opportunities there are in Staffordshire. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the next agenda item, I expect. So that is on the cusp of being rolled out. That will be a good test of exactly how good that IT platform is, because it will be quite reliant on a really good IT platform underpinning it. But so far, everything has worked pretty well. But I'll invite Daryl, or indeed I saw Tony Baines sort of popped up for a second then. So if either of them want to add anything, then with your permission, Chair, we'll ask them to do so.
Chair, it might be worth asking Tony Baines to give a bit of a brief on what the Jobs Brokerage digital platform is, just to help the committee understand what it will be doing, because it might be something you want to consider in the future.
Are you happy to come in there, Anthony?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As Philip mentioned, we have put in place a programme to support and promote higher skilled, better value jobs, and certainly a gap in the market in being able to promote opportunities that are generated locally in Staffordshire residents, but also offer it as a gateway to businesses either expanding and recruiting in the area or coming into the area to be able to recruit local people and promote those better opportunities to them. So we're just in the process of procuring a digital platform. We've been to the market and seen what's available out there. This is probably the best product that's there. We will complete that procurement in the next couple of weeks with a view to that platform going live. And what the platform does, effectively it's an online one-stop shop. So if you're a resident and you're in the county and you're looking for a job in Staffordshire, it presents all the vacancies that are available in the local area to you. It also captures all apprenticeship opportunities as well, so people are able to see what apprentices are there and available in the local area. And on top of that, it provides all the learning and courses that you're able to present there. And it will be that sort of go-to place, really. It'll be the sort of landing point for anyone looking for a job, an apprenticeship, or a training opportunity, and then it will link them directly to opportunities, but also give us a wider platform to do things around support and providing information around key sectors, growth areas, the labour market, where you can get careers advice and support, and be able to promote those opportunities. And what we'll also do is we're just in the process of recruiting some job brokers as well, who'll be able to work with people to actually help support them in identifying opportunities, but more importantly, working with local businesses and investors to say, we've got this platform available that you can use to promote your opportunities. So that where we've got investment and growth opportunities coming forward, we've heard about HS2, for instance, we're able to signpost people to those local opportunities. So we make sure we get and take advantage of the job opportunities being created in Staffordshire for Staffordshire residents.
Thank you for that, Anthony. If there are no further questions, we've got 3 recommendations on this item. A is to consider the 6-month update of the Council's work to implement the recommendations of the all-party working group on future economy and enterprise. I think we've well and truly done that. B is to scrutinise the update for any gaps or risks in the activities. Well, again, I think we've done that. And the C is to identify any opportunities to link work together or take the activity further in future plans. Now, I think item 5, item 6 are both much the same ilk, so it may be worth just combining the two and working the 2 items together when that comes back to us in the future, if members are happy with that. Agreed. Thank you. Yep. All in favour, yes. Yep. Are you happy with that, Philip, Daryl? Thank you. Okay, so we'll move straight on to item 6 then, which is economic renewal and transformation 6-monthly update recovery. Again, that's back to you, Councillor White.
Lovely, thank you very much, Chair.
But
hang on a minute, Philip.
Could someone have a look at some stage on the way that things are operating on the computer? We're now on page 19, but the computer is telling me that it's page 23.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to race through to keep up with the pages and go backwards and forwards, it's a near impossibility because one doesn't match with the other.
Okay, is that something you can? Okay. Right. Okay.
So it always starts.
We'll have a look at that, Councillor Smith. Sorry, Councillor White, back to you.
That's absolutely fine. Thanks for giving me a chance to scribble a couple of extra notes. So that's great. Lovely. Okay, so I'll seek to do a sort of a briefish introduction and run through the highlights, and then take it back to you, Chair, if that's okay. So the big picture in the Staffordshire economy is one of a consistent and quite strong recovery from the impacts of the COVID-19 restrictions. So the latest figures on unemployment rate, the claimant count in Staffordshire, are currently sitting at 3.6%, which compares to a national rate of 5.1% and a West Midlands rate of 6.1%. So we're returning to the situation that we've known for a number of years, which is Staffordshire being an area where we see very high levels of employment. We're also continuing to see a very strong rise in the overall number of job vacancies. Between September and October, that was that increased by about 18%, or 5,400 new jobs. And we're seeing continuing growth in employment with new developments such as the ASOS development near Lichfield, which will generate 2,000 jobs, and the Pets at Home relocation of their HQ and National Distribution Centre to Stafford, which is 800 jobs, just as examples of the sort of big additions to that, which we need to make sure we're feeding in terms of getting people into those jobs, which we were talking about a moment ago with the jobs brokerage scheme. So there's room for a good degree of optimism in terms of the Staffordshire picture. Obviously, the concerns that feed into that are the costs of living increases that we're seeing in terms of prices. Those also impact on the cost of living for businesses in terms of their input costs, and we do need to keep a close eye on that and the impact of that on Staffordshire businesses. In terms of our activities as the County Council, we continue to work with our partners, and I won't seek to rehearse the list of those because I know you're very familiar with them. We continue to work with those partners both in local government and in business support organisations, as well as delivering our own discrete schemes where we can best deliver them on our own. Some of the highlights are the innovative work that we're doing with the Federation of Small Business to provide supported memberships for businesses in Staffordshire. We've got about 200 businesses signed up to that since it launched in March 2021, which I'm really pleased about. Our Staffordshire Means Back to Business grant scheme, which we're delivering in partnership with our local authority colleagues at district and borough level, has, from a £1.4 million investment from the County Council, leveraged 2.1 million in matched investment from those district and borough councils. So a really nice example of us creating a framework and seeding it with our own investment, and then getting partner organisations to join us to enhance that. We've made a particular investment in promoting our visitor economy, both through the We Are Staffordshire work that we were discussing earlier, but also through a renewed focus on our destination management partnership Enjoy Staffordshire, where the County Council has made a £200,000 investment in increasing the capacity of We Are Staffordshire. That's very much about capitalising on not only our wonderful position in the county, beautiful rural setting and amazing attractions, but also recognising that national trend towards staycationing, which we think is here to stay for quite some time. So we're really getting behind that. And again, I'm pleased to say that our partners in districts and boroughs have also pretty much universally come in to support that as well with their own financial contributions, which is great to see. Our business startup scheme has supported over 120 new businesses during the course of the year. The other area of support that we have particularly contributed to is our countrywide redundancy and recruitment task force, which was set up to help businesses that did need to make redundancies during the pandemic. I'm pleased to say that the redundancy element of that task force was not called upon particularly often. It's still there as a service that businesses can call upon, but that task force is now very much focused on the recruitment side of that redundancy and recruitment coin, which again factors into that growth in demand for employees by Staffordshire businesses, and so we've pivoted that very successfully towards that need, whilst not forgetting about the importance of having that support there for businesses that do face that prospect of making redundancies. In terms of other initiatives that are particularly important to us at the moment, we have a continued focus on the regeneration of our towns and high streets, and particularly making sure that the County Council contributes to the success of the numerous Town Deal, Future High Streets Fund, and now just coming on stream, the Levelling Up Fund bids that our towns have been successful in winning, we're very active in terms of supporting those. We've also secured £1.5 million from the UK Community Renewal Fund, which is effectively a pilot fund the government has run to deliver 3 projects in Newcastle under Lyme and surrounding districts, which was a very nice win to get 3 of those for Staffordshire. So those are a few of the highlights. In terms of our priorities, there are 4 that are our particular focus going forwards. The first of those I mentioned a moment ago, which is the regeneration of our towns and high streets. The second is our continued focus on securing highly skilled and highly paid employment for Staffordshire people. The third is the focus that we discussed earlier around startups and step-up businesses. And the fourth is making sure that both the County Council and other organisations in Staffordshire have bid-ready projects that can benefit from the government's preferred mechanism for economic development funding at the moment, which is the sort of schemes that we've just been talking about. I'll leave it there, Chair, and I'll invite Darryl to add anything in that he wants to, and otherwise back to you for questions from you and the rest of the committee.
Thank you, Philip. Chair, I think Anthony Hodges attended in person, and I wondered if he wanted to add anything, given he's there. And could I just apologise for not being there in person today? You might be able to tell from the way I'm speaking, I'm full of cold, and I didn't think anyone would appreciate me sneezing and coughing on them today, hence dialing in.
Anthony, have you got anything you wish to add to that?
Chair, only that not really. I mean, that was a pretty comprehensive update from Councillor White, only in that everything we've done as part of our response to COVID-19 and economic recovery and transformation has been done in partnership. We've worked very closely with our districts and boroughs and our private sector partners, and I think that is key. We can only do what we do when we're working closely with those people who really are on the ground dealing with all the challenges. So I think there's probably a lot for you to digest, and we look forward to questions that you may have.
Thank you, Anthony. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure who's the best person to answer this, but I'll aim it at all 3 of you. So I'm very interested in the high-skilled jobs because I think that's the way forward. I know we've got lots of computing and biomedical type work going on around the county. We've got 2 universities. Now, I've read in your report about the link to FE colleges, sixth form colleges like the Newcastle and Stafford College Group, etc. What are we doing with Keele and Stafford universities? I ask this because I'm linked to a number of students at Keele, some of that I've been giving career advice to, and they're all members of the Newcastle Conservative Association, obviously, but they're very unsure about any jobs that are going in Staffordshire. In fact, they haven't a clue about any tech jobs going in Staffordshire, other than what might be on the campus, where a company actually asks the university, do you have any bright kids that want to come and work for us? They haven't a clue about anything. So I was wondering, could we not target Keele and Stafford universities, go through the Students' Union or through the Vice-Chancellors and say, look, these are the sorts of jobs you can get in Staffordshire. We want you to stay. You're bright kids, you've come here, you've had 3 years of fabulous life in the sleazy hot spots of Stoke and Newcastle, etc. Sorry about the nightclubs closing, but they will reopen, and please stay. So what do we do about that? Because from what I can see, we're doing absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Okay, shall I take that one, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's great. So in terms of the relationships, we have active partnerships with all three of the universities that operate in Staffordshire. We've also got the University of Wolverhampton in Stafford, in Staffordshire Place too. So we have active collaboration agreements with all three. They're also very much interwoven into that ecosystem that we've been talking about. So through the local enterprise partnership and the Growth Hub, we all work together very closely, both in terms of the skills and employment agenda, but also more broadly in terms of innovation and economic development. So that work is quite extensive. One of the strands of our We Are Staffordshire work is to look at that stickiness of Staffordshire as a place to retain our graduates. It's an acknowledged issue that people who get a really good education here in Staffordshire tend to be attracted away more often than not to the big cities, when there are actually quite a lot of very good graduate jobs available here in the county. So that is one of the things that we are aiming to address through that work. I am slightly troubled by the comment that those students that you've engaged with, Councillor Hutton, haven't had any outreach from their university career services in terms of employment opportunities, because that's very much not what I would expect. So if you'd like to pick up on that with me and with Tony Baines outside of this meeting, we'll be very happy to discuss that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, but hopefully that gives you some sort of comfort on the broader points.
Just on the back of what Councillor Hutton's just said, we've got sixth form academies all over Staffordshire. We've got one in Tamworth, for example. And I think we need to better engage with all sixth form, because like you've just pointed out, our kids go off to university. They don't always go to a university here in Staffordshire. My daughter went to Loughborough in Leicestershire, but she's still a Staffordshire resident. She still lives in Tamworth. She works in Lichfield, and she uses our resources. And are we going to keep her? Possibly not, because I think the lure of a better job and better money in Dubai might take her away from dull, glum and rainy Staffordshire. So I think when we get to the recommendations, I think I'm adding that into B for us to work with all sixth form academies across Staffordshire, and not just the ones that are very local to us here. Councillor Smith, do you have a question?
Chairman, I think when we look at universities, you have to consider that, like your daughter going to Leicestershire, people go to university in the place that suits them for the course that they want to do. And so the people that come to Staffordshire don't necessarily come to Staffordshire because they want to live here. They come to Staffordshire because they want to go to university here. And I think that affects the distribution of people coming in and coming out. That students are not necessarily local. And I think that mixture of people where, yes, we are able to attract people who've moved into the area to stay into the area. And I think that's an important thing for us to do. But I don't think we should beat ourselves up about it. No. It's not the biggest thing in the world about whether our university students stay here. Thank you.
Could I come back in on that, Chair? Would that be all right?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah. So I was going to jump in after you'd spoken, but yeah, Councillor Smith got in too quickly. This is one of the big points of building the Staffordshire brand, so that we are Staffordshire and Staffordshire ambassador work. That we need to be doing a couple of things. The first is we need to be telling that Staffordshire story a bit better than we have done historically. I think we probably all know that as Staffordshire people, it's a bit of a fragmented picture at the moment. So if you're sat up in East Staffordshire where I am, is your understanding of South Staffordshire or the Moorlands or wherever else that good? We need to build that sort of cohesive view of Staffordshire as a place, so that people understand the opportunities that there are across the whole of the county, not just in their bit of it. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to be confident about those comings and goings. So as Councillor Smith said, people go to university where it suits them to seek experiences. People will do the same with their employment. If your daughter does go off to Dubai, I'm sure she'll have a whale of a time, but she will probably want to come back at some point, and it's the coming back that's the important bit, and knowing that there's something you can do in the area that you call home. And we all know home has a couple of meanings, doesn't it? Home is where you are, but it's also where you're from. So it's making the place where you are from attractive, so that you will come back at some point if you've gone away. But it's also, for people who aren't Staffordshire people, making us relevant to them, so that they understand that there are opportunities here. And the people in the middle of that are the people who come to study in Staffordshire, so they'll know their university well, but it's making sure that the university is porous with the wider community and the business community. And the same applies to schools, just to directly address your point. And one of the things that has driven that Ignite programme that I mentioned earlier is finding a way for us to get into schools. Schools are often quite cautious about bringing people in from the business community. And this is a really good way of doing that, and starting to build up those links with schools that can then lead to that better understanding of what the opportunities are on their doorstep. I'll just say, as a by the way, I spent my entire teenage years growing up in Burton, determined that I was going to move away to London, and guess what? I did it for about a year, and then I came back. So, I'm probably a model of that, but we need more people who do the same sort of thing.
Councillor Smith, did you want to come back? Microphone. Microphone. Microphone.
So I was trying to stop that from working. Only just to mention that Stafford University has one of the highest levels of graduate recruitment in the whole country. And I think that that's also something that we need to be proud of. Yeah. What we produce is high quality.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, sorry, Keith Frunder. Forgot about you.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair, for forgetting about me. Just wanted to say how brilliant it is to see everything about the triage services and everything else for people to change jobs and everything else. I think that's fantastic, and the school projects that you're currently undertaking and everything else all seems to make complete sense to myself. In terms of relating back to what we're trying to do here as a committee, item 3 is to try and monitor the success, etc., as to what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be measuring performance and everything else, and to achieve its aims and visions. I think, I don't know about the rest of the committee, but we could do with potentially setting some soft targets, if something else that we could work towards, so that we know just how successful we have been. That's not to say that all the information you've given us today isn't fantastic news and is doing well as far as Staffordshire is concerned, but in terms of how we are going to try and measure our own success, I think that's something that perhaps we need to have a look at. It's something that it's difficult to measure if you don't have anything that you can compare it to, and trends and things like that is one thing, but actually setting ourselves some ideas and targets would, I think, help in the situation. So I don't know whether anyone can answer that particular question. In terms of what we're doing overall, and the economic strategy, the rural economic strategy again, and everything else, and all the 2-tier and 3-tier working that has been stated throughout the whole of the last 2 items. Just on the side, the Health Committee, for example, are looking at ways of being able to look at members who then go and work with the Health Committee at each of the different districts. And I'm just wondering whether or not we've got to the stage now with 2- and 3-tier working on this sort of strategy within the economic side of things, whether or not you consider that potentially we would need to have a similar arrangement between Prosperous and some maybe service delivery or whatever else it might be in the other areas, so that members could link what we're doing here back to those other committees at the districts and level, so at least the 2-tier level knows a bit more about it. And if we are going to be doing quite a lot of work close together, which appears that would be the way the future is going to be lying, whether that's something too complex or something that would be mirrored with what we've done with the Health Committee. So it's just an idea, and that, well, again, might help us with the idea of strategics and everything else, and it might even help with a little bit with scrutiny. I'm not going to say any more than that after last week. So I'm just thinking that might be a little bit of a way forward. And then lastly, in terms of all the renewal funds and the economic benefits and the loans and all the arrangements that we can, could we please look at the way that this is impacting locally, a little bit more locally now, on their employability training, small business support in terms of regeneration of small businesses and startups. And that's something that we could then put in place through these hubs that we're thinking of as well. And I just think that would tie a nice place at that one. So we could have a look at just how all this funding that we're getting at the moment and direction is actually affecting us at local level. And then very finally, lastly, if you can keep me in touch with the Chatterley Valley development that's, I know, based under Newcastle at the moment. That is very close to my division in Biddulph, and I'll be very interested in helping out and being informed as to what's happening with that particular project. Thank you.
Okay, shall I come back to that, Chair?
Yep, please.
Okay, that's great. Just on the final point, I believe that the investment in the Chatterley Valley site passed its final stage at Newcastle Borough Council earlier this week. But I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that separately. In terms of the data, and I would suggest probably linkage to those 4 key priorities that I mentioned would be the most relevant way of doing that. So, you know, regeneration activity that contributes towards highly skilled, highly paid jobs, startup and step-up activity, and our success in bid-ready projects, both for the County Council and other organisations in Staffordshire. We can do that. The data is there. It's a matter of presenting it in a way that is useful and relevant to the committee. But I think, as we ably demonstrated in the rather large appendix to the last item, we can definitely do that, and that will help perhaps draw together that into a cumulative impact. Because, as you'll know, we have targets for all of our individual projects in terms of, you know, number of apprenticeship starts, business investments, etc. But perhaps if we do look to pull that together with that linkage, that might get you what you want on that front. I think that would be quite useful.
Philip, it was just for the renewal process, you know, when we're getting back to the renewal side of things as we're entering that stage now. So it was really just for that process, so that we can see how we're getting on, really.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think linking it to those 4 key priorities would be a really smart way of doing that. In terms of those linkages to the work in particular localities, the key officer link is our strategic delivery manager, of whom we have 4, each one covering 2 districts, and I think maybe we'd have to have a conversation about that, about how we might create a member linkage that feels similar and is useful. But I'm very happy to have that conversation. So perhaps we'll pick that up in due course and see whether there is something we can craft that would be of benefit.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we've got 2 recommendations. The first one is to consider the 6 monthly update on the progress made. I think, if we're honest, we probably need that to come back to us in 6 months. Omicron is going to dictate how that progresses, and how many people we can get back into working from the office type scenario or back on site. So if the committee are happy, I'll recommend that that does come back to us in 6 months. Thank you. And B is to consider the interventions already made by the County Council and partner organisations and recommends further interventions to be considered by the Cabinet that the committee believes would help to enable. I think, Philip, if you've been taking notes, you'll have quite a few that members have brought to you, and Darryl's nodding his head as well. So, and Anthony's in the room, so they're all in agreement. And we'll look forward to those all coming back together and obviously, as I said earlier, combining item 5 and 6 into one item because they do overlap in every way. Okay, so thank you for your attendance online today. Hopefully we get to see you in person soon. Get better soon, Darryl, and get better soon to baby George. And we'll look forward to seeing you. See you soon.
Managed to sleep through all of this, so thank you very much, Chair. Thanks to the committee as well.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6, and I can now turn round and not crick my neck because the people are in the room. Economic renewal and transform. Oh no, we've done that one. Next item. Highways, high level transformation. It best be high level, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I try to be as high a level as I can be, really. Obviously, during our election period, the residents told us that repairing our roads was one of our top priorities. We know there's a national issue, and this with funding with highways, and it's estimated there's around a £10 billion backlog of repairs required for local roads around the UK, which equates to the fact that we have £200 million worth of roads already requiring replacement in Staffordshire. That in itself is a challenge, and the Cabinet continue to explore opportunities on how we can bridge that funding gap here in Staffordshire. However, regardless of the funding challenge, there are also some fundamental changes that we want to make to the highway service. Over the last few months, Cabinet have considered our top priorities and have set a new vision or ambition for highways. We understand the issues, as members have been feeding in quite a lot, and we are really clear that we want to shift to a customer-focused offer going forward. We're now in the process of considering what our future highway service will look like when the contract ends in 2024. But rather than wait till then, we're making some changes now. So we've already brought the network management unit back in-house and are now in the process of bringing a range of other services related to safety inspections, work identification and asset management back into the direct control of the Council by April this year. Today's discussion provides an overview of the whole transformation programme that we're embarking on and seeks the input from Scrutiny Committee members to help inform and shape this programme going forward. I'm going to hand over now to James, who's going to take you through a presentation which covers the key areas. I hope you'll find it interesting, so you can crick your neck again, Chairman, and set up a really useful scrutiny conversation. Over to James.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Next meeting.
Hear me okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. So in summary then, I think we said last time when we came when was it, November, December for the Highways Performance Update, we explained then about Cabinet's new vision for highways is to move away from the last few years of austerity enforced minimum statutory service provision to an exciting new model that reinvests in the quality of Staffordshire's roads, really empowers communities and delivers excellent customer service. It's set out here in a bit more detail with a clear vision, which is to deliver that excellent customer experience and improve the quality of Staffordshire's roads. That's also set out in a form of measurable ambition that over the next 5 years will include improving road condition and public satisfaction and enabled through a number of strategic improvement areas that are summarised there on the right. So the transformation programme overall is complex, but it's broken down into probably 3 main distinct parts. All are intrinsically linked and dependent upon one another. I'll just give a quick summary now and then we'll come back to them in a bit more detail in a moment. But the first part of the programme involves designing the future delivery model when the initial 10-year break point in the current contract with Amy comes to an end at 2024. That involves considering all the relative strengths and weaknesses and simply extending the current model, which is an option. We could extend it by 5 plus 5 years if the Council wanted to. or making changes within the current model, or just transitioning to something completely different. The second part of the programme, Cabinet are clear that whatever the highway delivery model looks like in the future or beyond 2024, it will also involve rebuilding and re-strengthening the council's own client side to take greater control of assurance around how the service is delivered, as well as the ability to continue to drive, continuous improvement. As part 3 of the programme, that also includes an investment strategy, which will of course be a significant factor in determining things like the condition and speed of repair of roads in the future, and also the pace of change for some wider improvement programme. That just sets out the governance arrangements. There's robust arrangements that have been put in place to oversee this transformation programme. The main block in the middle is made up of a transformation strategic board. That provides political leadership in the form of the 2 responsible cabinet members, being Councillor Williams for Highways and Transportation and Councillor DeVille for Commercial, and then together with Darrell Ayres as the accountable corporate director and programme sponsor for this change programme. Beneath that, we've got the Highways Transformation Programme Board that's led by myself as the senior responsible officer for the change programme, supported by my highway service managers and the County Council's internal change team, including a number of corporate partners or corporate colleagues, should we say, for the likes of commercial services, legal, finance, HR, communications, audit and stuff, and so on. The programme board oversees and coordinates various work streams and activities and reports back into that strategic board on a monthly basis. And then over on the right-hand side, we've got the linkage to the existing Infrastructure Plus governance arrangements, which are important to sort of help shape and facilitate some of those changes that are going to be needed. And obviously we link on the left-hand side back to the Constitution of the Council. So the future delivery model, going back into these 3 key themes then in a little bit more detail. The first and second stages of the whole programme, we're employing the external support and expertise of an organisation called Future Highways Research Group, or FHRG for short. FHRG is a partnership between an organisation called Proving Services, formed by practitioners from Cranfield University School of Management, and an organisation called ADEPT, which some of you may have heard of, which is the Association of Directors of Economy, Environment, Planning and Transport. Together, they have developed a sophisticated and objective process to evaluate current and proposed highway service delivery models, which has been endorsed by SIPFA and also accredited to gold standard by APMG. So giving us a lot of confidence and assurance in that process. With the challenge of FHRG, 3 potential future delivery model front runners have already been identified that we believe would best deliver the Cabinet's future vision for the highway service. They're summarised on that chart there in boxes C, D and E. So box C is the sort of option 1, which in the future would be potentially what we might call a mixed economy model, which basically involves managing multiple contractors to undertake different tasks and activities under the direction of the council. In box D, we've got option 2, which would be to consider establishing an in-house delivery model. And option E, sorry, box E is the sort of third option, which would be a redesign of a strategic partnership model with a principal provider, but either way with a strengthened council client side. So the proposed timeline for this evaluation process for these future delivery models is set out in the pink boxes across the top. That includes 2 scrutiny sessions to test and challenge progress ahead of the outline business case recommendation being submitted to Cabinet in late spring, and a further scrutiny session later in the year to examine the resulting change programme that gets embedded. The second part of the transformation programme, which is about transforming our offer now, involves making improvements in the current delivery model. So Infrastructure Plus contract is quite flexible, and it means we can make these amendments as we need to. The Highways Network Management function, as Councillor Williams has already mentioned, which coordinates and manages planned activities on the road network, transferred back to the Council early this year, so we've already done that. Following a partnership review of how risk and liability is also currently managed within the contract, we're now in the process of transferring the safety inspection and asset management functions back to the Council. They should arrive back by April of this year. Supporting those challenges, we're also consulting a select committee on a new highway asset management plan. We'll be doing that next month. And then there's another series of other ongoing improvements, including changes to the ways that cyclical reactive drainage activities carried out, improvements to the way that members and residents are kept informed of operational processes, and then some further kind of low-level improvements, including the ambition to create a new innovation hub and sort of longer-term plans, which will all be subject to an investment strategy. So the investment strategy is the third thread, or the third thread of the programme. This will be based really on what the council can afford within the context of national funding allocations to local government and also council's wider medium-term financial strategy. Whatever funding is available, the outline approach is quite clear. It'll be to improve the quality and resilience of roads across Staffordshire, progress our strategic improvement areas around that customer service offer, improving quality assurance and value for money, reducing both the maintenance backlog and future life cycle cost of road maintenance activities, providing visible, tangible investments and promoting innovation and sustainability across the service. The MTFS working group has already considered this area of work back in November. The outcome and level of investment won't know for a few more weeks yet, but that'll evolve as part of the MTFS approval process. So in terms of involving scrutiny, the role of scrutiny obviously really important to a transformation programme of this scale, magnitude. Today is the first attempt to just provide a quick overview, high-level overview, as we said, collate any initial input and support or challenge from committee for this programme. With the committee's agreement, we plan to return with an update on the evaluation of the future delivery models prior to making a recommendation to Cabinet in spring, and then also continue to provide further updates and get direction on all strands, or the other strands of the transformation programme as part of the regular updates of the highway service. To conclude, questions really for today for committee, just summarise there briefly. Do those strategic improvement areas sound about right? Do you think there's anything missing? Are there any comments, issues at this early stage that committee members could feed back to us? And do those proposals for involving scrutiny going forward feel about right? That's us. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. There's two questions I would like to ask. One is a comment that was made to me by someone who I think claims to know about these things, is that you get what you pay for, and that what we're actually asking for from Amy, which we are constantly criticising, is their quality. But are we actually paying the rate for the job to have a decent job done, or are we paying for a lash-up to be done? It makes me wonder when I came here this afternoon, an area which has not that long ago been repaired, that has now got great potholes in it again. So, is it quality or what are the reasons? The other thing is that we have cut back dramatically on our workforce. So when we have things like gullies that we have to wait for ages to be able to get cleaned out, are we likely to be able to see an improvement in the service that we're providing? Because I don't think the money is going to spread any more than it's currently doing. Sure.
Did one of you want to come back on that one? James?
Yes, thank you. Certainly on the quality elements and getting what you pay for, the contract is set up in that the county council will pay what is necessary to do the right job. I think that there are a number of different challenges though that can affect quality. I think the most predominant feature is that right in the introduction, Councillor Williams mentioned that just on our roads assets alone, just on our carriageway assets alone, we've got a backlog of around about £200 million worth of roads that just need resurfacing. So quite often, regardless of wanting to pay the contractor the right amount of money, we've simply just got too much work to do. So the treatment to repair a statutory safety defect can be relatively cheap, but if you actually wanted to do the complete job, it may be hundreds of thousands of times much more money. I'm sure if I'm making sense there. So essentially we're trying to repair and patch roads which actually are degraded beyond what's really capable. So the quality of the repair is fine. It's what you're trying to repair, which is just probably beyond its shelf life. Does that answer that question?
Microphone.
Sorry. Oh.
I also asked about the reduction in the crews that we have to do gully cleaning and that sort of work, because we seem to be taking forever to get our gullies cleared.
And yeah, and that's a fair point. I think since around about 2012 and the austerity measures, we have had to go through a series of MTFS savings, and we are at what would be described as perhaps, don't think this is inappropriate to say, but we're sort of at the EasyJet or Ryanair model end of the spectrum at the moment. We are on a highway budget, which is based on providing minimum statutory safe and alive service, and part of this transformation programme from Cabinet and the new priority, the new ambition is to reinvest in that service.
Just on the back of what you just said, James, so £200 million worth of resurfacing works alone, just enlighten us as to what's happening with lobbying government for more money then. Because we obviously need that money, and you know some of our roads are in a very dire strait, and not straight at all actually, but
well, they can be straight, they can wind around as well and go up and down. I can assure the committee that yeah, we do lobby regularly for the amount of money, but just for your information alone, our settlement from DFT last year was £8.7 million less than it was the year before, and it's going to be the same for the next 3 years, £8.7 million less. The £10 billion that is out there for the whole of the country of England is quite a similar thing with the areas where we've had to make savings. Has been the easy one has been to come to highways, because it isn't, you know, we have a statutory duty, but to maintain a minimum statutory duty, that's what we do. Whereas when we're looking at social care and health, that's where the money has to go. So unfortunately, yes, we do lobby, we have another lobby again due to the fact about they've given us a nice 3-year settlement, but unfortunately reducing it by another nearly £30 million. It's a lot of money when in this one set term it's nearly 40 million that is going to be a reduction on our roads. So I appreciate that, but we do lobby on a regular basis.
and I would urge every member that sits in this room to lobby your MP, because they're the people that are going to Westminster to lobby on our behalf. So get your emails sent, ladies and gents. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. We're talking about strategic thing. I've got 2 areas I'd like to bring up. One is if we could have a strategic plan of how we can get HGVs out of built-up areas. So HGVs that make a cut through a housing estate because it's convenient to the driver to get onto an A road that he wants to get onto, means I get an awful lot of complaints about traffic down that road, particularly rattling trucks. So when we look at the strategic road network, I'm not going to talk about my division, but improvements could be made in terms of through roads for HGVs from industrial centres onto major roads like the 500, etc., roundabouts in appropriate places. I think if these could be planned for, that's obviously over a 5-year period. I think that would be a very useful strategic view, and it would take an awful lot of pressure off built-up areas. The second one I would like to talk about is we need a much better relationship with utility companies like Severn Trent, so we don't leave holes in roads, large cavities in roads for over a year. And I would welcome that. I mean, I'd be happy to negotiate on your behalf with Severn Trent with a full legal team behind me, because it's appalling what they get away with. I don't blame particularly highways. What I'd like to see is a decent working relationship with utility companies, that they are responsible, that they accept their responsibility when their systems or their workmen damage our roads. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have to say that when it comes to the HGVs, the LGVs, and even with the vans and larger vans these days, we have to remember that unless if the vehicle is licensed and fully okay, it is able to travel on roads, including rural roads and including residential roads. The strategic road network is there for the bulk of the fleet, and we have a freight strategy that we work with main freight companies and different hauliers from all over the country. So we do try to do that, but unfortunately, I think it is something we have to remember, that HGVs have got a right to go on these roads. So the problem about strategic planning to divert them through different areas and and have other similar types of roads to go from A road to A road is one, very, very expensive, and two, it isn't really feasible at the present, within the present thing. We've already got roads there that HGVs will use, and we do put in place, and this is where local members can help with, we do put in place things that discourage HGVs from going certain areas. So if they've got to go around smaller islands or the different types of traffic calming, that does discourage them. But unfortunately, that is it is something really which goes into a freight forum rather than a highway sort of potential issue. When it comes to utility companies, I would love a really good, robust working relationship, and we're trying to do just that. Unfortunately, they do tend to change their staff in certain areas quite a lot, and we've had some discussions, and they seem to be progressing and seem to be responsive and positive. But again, I know the area there, Councillor Hutton means in his area about the holes and getting things filled. Unfortunately, these changes and the way that utilities work have meant that we have difficulties with that. And I have to say, remembering that when it comes to utilities, they seem to have more rights than us in a lot of respects. They can start digging roads up as and when they want to. Similarly with the broadband companies who create us issues, we have a duty to oblige them and give them licenses to do that. So it's a very difficult one to do. If Councillor Hutton's got any contacts and he wants to help and put them on, we'll be more than happy to talk to him.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for your report. Interesting to see we've got the long-term look ahead, but also that we've recognised there's shortcomings in the short term and that we're doing something to address that. I think that's important. Just a couple of things for me. First of all, there was a couple of references within your presentation to more localised engagement and involvement. I just wonder if you could give us a flavour of what you think that's going to look like and what that is, and how that would impact on us as individual members and hopefully improve the quality of works that we see. And secondly, option 3, you mentioned in your report going forward for the next 10 years was a potential 5+5 contract again in the same kind of structure as it currently is. Are we looking at potentially just a renewal of the existing contract 5+5, or do we go back out to the market again? So it's a whole re-procurement rather than just buying another 10 years of potentially the same problems. Presumably we'd go back out to the market. Is that the intention, or is there an A and a B within that option 3 to renew or to replace, if you like? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. When it comes to localised engagement, one of my big bugbears from being a backbench for many years was the fact that you have very little input into what actually went on within your ward and within your area and within your district. So the part of these proposals of the changing of working practice will be that local members will be consulted and the prioritisation of works will be from the local members through the SCIMS teams as it is now, who will be working directly with the schedulers so that those works take place. Remembering it's always going to have to be within the financial constraints of what we've got, but actually that will mean that local members' priorities will be addressed. It's an issue that was brought up to me many times, and I can honestly say brought up by me many times before I got into this job. So it is more into that, so that the local engagement, and especially when we're talking about our community highways teams out there, they know their areas a lot better than others. So that's why we want to get that, so that they will be able to prioritise and ensure that gets done first.
Just within that, David, sorry, in that position then, will we have more teeth than we've currently got? Because as a minute, it feels a little bit like with the DH, whenever we talk about prioritisation within my ward, it's, well, what do you want to use your DHP for within that? And that's pretty much the extent of our engagement and helping to drive that prioritisation of what happens in our area. Will we have more teeth to actually have some more influence over that programme than we currently have?
Not only do I want you to have more teeth, but I want you to have exactly that, more influence, but also more engagement and then more responsibility. So you'll actually be the ones where, when parishes or the people say, why haven't you done that? You'll be saying, you will be able to say, I have prioritised that for that reason. So that little bit of ownership as well. And I think that's really important, because as members, that's what we get elected for. So that's what we'll be able to do. So that's my intention with the way that the changes within the community highways teams, as they will be known, will be working alongside members, and actually you'll be the ones dictating exactly what, and then it will be up to the SCIMS, and obviously with their extra knowledge, I think they'll be the ones who will prioritise what's best where, but also they'll be able to work with the schedulers to see if we can get the works done in the most efficient way, so we can get us more done for our book. Within the difference in the contractual changes that are coming up in 2024, everything's on the table, and which is why we've gone to that company to look at what is best for us in Staffordshire. And I know James has consulted with all of most of the different highways companies around the country, throughout all the different councils, and had a look at their models. Some councils have taken nothing out of highways at all, kept all the money in there, and are not as good as us on our on the statistics of where we are, and some others have taken out more and do less. So what we're looking at is what actually it's got to fit the purpose for Staffordshire. We are a rural area, but we also have some metropolitan areas in our county, and we're looking to get the best possible one. So yeah, nothing's off the 5-year contract. Could be an extension as it is, could be an extension with an agreed change, could be completely different altogether, which is why we've got the three main strands that have come out. One's completely in-house, could work, maybe not. The mixed economy model is very much based on what we see out there especially when you look at what government do with a lot of work, and staying with the same company for what we have. They don't do a bad job, but the contract might need some alterations. So we're looking, that's what we're deciding on really, is what is the best for Staffordshire, but it's got to fit really well. It's got to be selective for Staffordshire for what we need.
Councillor Flunder.
Thank you, Chair. I can't agree more than enough about the HGV and what's happening in some of our areas here, and also getting member involvement in the process over the next three months, if we can be involved with the process, because I didn't notice there was much input from members within the process. So I assume it's written in underneath. Just to let other members know, there's as well as the highways teams that we all know, I've become crucially aware, shall we say, of the highways network team, which is part and parcel of the highways team at the moment, but I wasn't necessarily fully aware of their existence. They're the people that send out notifications of road closures and everything else, and the meant to liaise with utility companies and everything else. And we had a massive issue, as David knows, in and around Bagnall, and working with one of the Western Power Distribution. I can say them because they've been very good. And although there was problems at the beginning, we've now come up with a way of actually consulting and involving local members, and even involving parish councils, which I'm very happy with. And there's also a way that we're moving forward. So I hope that will be included in the future development of ideas within this process, because I do think that once you get that involvement, It makes life an awful lot easier, both for us as members, but also the local councillors and other people like that, because otherwise people just aren't aware of the enormity of some of the work that's being carried out there at the moment, particularly with all the environmental changes. So just an observation. I'd like to thank you and particularly the Highways Network team for arranging all this and for everyone coming on board for this one occasion. But I know there's a working group out there at the moment with, I think there's 4 or 5 members, not necessarily all Prosperous members, who are actually working with the Highways team developing this system. So I hope that will be taken on board. And I just wanted other members to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, just on that, just before we go, actually you're quite right, and as part of that with the Network Highway team, we've actually recently been talking with them about making sure, and they have now consulted every single parish council within the county to ensure that do the clerks of each one of those parish councils want the PTTROs with all the when there's traffic works going out, and I'm also liaising with them at the moment, and they're liaising with digital to see if they can get it so that it's a much easier way of putting it onto social media. At the moment, if you do that, you have to alter it because it looks a bit scraggly and it goes all over the place. So that's what they're working on at the moment. But it's something I was aware of, and it was something I've made sure to do. So it's there.
Thank you, Dave, and the team.
Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, welcome the fact that we're going to have working closely with our teams. David, you know, I work quite closely with Richard. I can assure you I have emailed my MP about the £8.2 million deficit we had because she decided to put in the local paper to set up pothole patrols, which was great, but we were on the loser because we hadn't got the money to repair them, so I've done that. When we look at the quality of our road repairs, unfortunately at the moment we have a situation where the inspectors are inspecting their own work. And I know particularly in the area where I am, and I travel quite a way around Staffordshire doing lots of training on motorcycles for people, that depending on which team has gone out and done the repairs to what quality you get. And you can see that some actually seal around the tarmac and some don't. And the ones that don't seal it, it's within a few weeks, it's up again. So I would welcome that we really need to look at, you know, who actually goes out and inspects this. Now, I mean, if you bought something from a shop, and you asked somebody to repair it and it wasn't repaired right, you'd be going back and saying, well, repair it again at your expense. So why can't we say to these people who aren't repairing our roads correctly, well, you repair it again at your expense, not ours. When we're looking about HGVs, perhaps we ought to look a bit more closely then at planning applications for quarries, because I've been on the planning committee only a few months, but I noticed that when we look at planning applications for quarries, it's obviously there's a big impact on our highways, where we're going to have lorries that weigh lots and lots of tons of weight are going to be using our rural roads. Well, a lot of the roads aren't really good for them at the moment, and if they're going to damage our roads, then let's get some money out of these quarries then to start paying to either repair them or put them in a better state, because I know there's an application coming in near Toxeter where they're going to be using the rural roads, and me for the Patkins are looking at it thinking it's not really good there. And sympathise over the utilities. I know exactly what goes on there. You get one team comes out and digs the hole, they then put some traffic lights around it for about 3 days, then another team comes out and gets the bit out that needs repairing. Then it's left for another 3 or 4 days, and then another team comes back and repairs it. Then it's left another 3 or 4 days, and then another team comes back and fills the hole in. So, that we ought to be looking at when we repair these things, that can't one team do all the job? Why has it got to be split up? But no, I think it's the way forward is really excellent, David, and I look forward to working with you, particularly in my area. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Actually, just to let you know, the inspectors are coming back in-house. They should be in by April. So that's part of what we're trying to do. The quality part was something that we have picked up with Amy. And yes, you are correct. At some times we've not had the best quality going out there. But also, and this is maybe for information, that some of the repairs that we do are temporary in nature. Reason for that is actually much more efficient. It sounds ridiculous to myself at the start, but you can repair a small pothole several times, quite a few times, for the amount of money that it takes to repair it fully in the first place and the time. But however, that also comes back to the original part about some of the red roads. We could go out and do permanent repairs on some of these red roads, but actually then the road's got to get ripped up. So actually the temporary repairs, although they don't last and they are temporary, that they are cost efficient in that respect. But again, the quality of the actual finished product for when we're wanting, and it should be at the end of where it's a good road, then that's where we are trying to ensure that the quality of the repair is correct. Just one where I learned quite a bit of. We did start to use the tape around the edges of potholes. The cost implication of that was so much that I told them to stop doing it, because from the just simply from the engineering part and what we got told from the people who know all about potholes and how they do, it wasn't making much of a difference. Actually, if the pothole was repaired properly in the first place, and that's what I thought. But obviously, I'm not a scientist. So when they said that to me, and I do trust the fact that they've come back with, actually, if it's repaired properly and it's done properly inside, then it shouldn't come out any different. The tape on the outside makes it look a bit nicer, and it didn't make any difference at all. When it comes to quarries, I do appreciate that I've got a quarry right by me, but they should have detailed routes and they should be able to keep to it. So when it comes to quarries and the applications that come through the county council for that, they have got matters of recourse if they don't keep to that. To those detailed routes, and they should do. And then when it comes to the actual application, you need to get in very early onto the. It's not a 106. It's a 227. It's a 278 for when you want to look at those type of things. So, but you will need to get that in at the original state when they apply, rather than afterwards, because it doesn't work that way. If it's what it's already agreed is what will be agreed, but they should have detailed routes and they should keep to it. And as part of that, I know with the one that I work with in Sarden, they're even putting signs up, and they have done, and they do a lot of work around the area. So they should have conditions within to mitigate some of the issues that residents feel. But unfortunately, I know I used to be on the planning committee. Quarries are a thing that we need in Staffordshire, just due to the fact of what we have under the ground, and that's where it's going to come from for the country. So it's a strategic site in that respect.
Thank you, David. Just on planning applications, members, I think if you've got an application that you believe should be flagged to highways, I know that David and James's team will know about those, but they can't be all over everybody's area when there's lots of applications that come in. I've got one that I'm going to be flagging about a McDonald's going onto an old car sales garage, and the slip road is just not acceptable that they're intending to use. So that's just one in my area. If we don't flag them as members, then it's very easy when you're as busy as that team are to try and keep on top of it all. So that's just a plea from me, really, that if you feel that a planning application needs to be highlighted to highways, even if they don't object to it, at least they've had sight of it and early on. These planning applications tend to go in way before the actual decision's made. So, sorry, David.
And I just wanted to really put my district council hat back on. It needs to go in before the planning permission's been given. Anything after that, you're asking people to do it, whereas rather it needs to be put into the conditions and agreed before the planning consent's actually given.
Yeah. So if we just look back at the board, if we just look at the 3 questions that we've been asked, I think as members we can agree that we've answered all of those. Does anyone disagree? Just read. Yeah, lots of and ideas. I think we've given you some ideas and some food for thought, team. When are you thinking of coming back to us? So the March meeting, so okay. That suits me great. I'm sure members will be in agreement with that. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much to you both for staying with us.
Yes. Thank you.
And you're free to go if you feel that you can stay if you want. Oh, okay then.
Cheers then.
Thanks very much, gents. Okay, so we'll move on to the item 8, the work programme, Jonathan. I always catch him out on that one.
As set out in the report, Chairman, I've highlighted the changes since last time in green, so just flag those up basically. And
okay, so our next, sorry.
I was just going to say the 2 changes from the previous reports today, combining the economic reports together, and there was another one as well.
Item 5 and 6, wasn't
it?
Yeah, combining those two together.
Which is coming back in March.
Yeah.
And there's the 6-monthly highways transformation update.
Yeah. So obviously the 28th of February is our next Prosperous meeting. No. 28th of February.
No, the 21st of January is what we're going to talk about, the inquiry day.
So that's coming in a minute. So the 28th of February is the next meeting of this committee. And that's set out on your paperwork that you've got there. And then the March meeting we've just discussed has got the what we've just done, the highways transformation, coming back to us. Now, the 21st of February, which should have been our January, sorry, you're confusing me now. 21st of January should have been our bus inquiry day. Jonathan, do you want to explain why we might need to postpone that?
I can do, Chairman. We were notified by Louise Clayton in the transportation unit yesterday that the government's plans in respect of the BSIP settlement funding have been pushed back basically at least until February time. And therefore that they've made the suggestion, this is our transportation unit, have made the suggestion of delaying the inquiry day so you actually know what funding, if any, is going to be available at the time you have the inquiry day.
Makes sense.
I'd actually forgotten, Chairman, you were holding the 21st of February as a potential date for the inquiry day. So whether that's something you want to consider.
Well, I've been up to members. Can I?
I'm happy for it to be postponed until the 21st of February. I think we need to have all the information and we need to know the figures before we start inviting members, outsiders to come in and discuss with us.
Yeah, so it comes under my badge a little bit in terms of what's happening at the moment. Within that email from Louise, it also said that the paperwork that we have to create to help the county to produce if you like, the strategic plan element of it is also been put back now till April. So it was originally going to be in March. That would only given them 4 weeks to have implemented anything that we might suggest at the inquiry day. But because it's now been put back till April, that means we still got roughly the same time period between the inquiry day and having to deliver something that makes sense, which will then come back to the committee for final approval after the inquiry day. That does mean that will have to change then from the February meeting to the March meeting, because the inquiry day now will be between those two meetings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Is everyone happy to do that? Can I also, and I don't want to browbeat you too much, but I will make sure that Jonathan sends far more emails out. And thank you, Philip, for coming back with your suggestions, and with Tina and others. For those of you that haven't suggested anyone yet within your areas and your divisions and your districts in terms of who might be looking after community transport or bus companies or anything like that, could you please put your thinking caps on? Because at the moment, we would like to have an array of people from around the whole county in every district if at all possible. And at the moment, I think there's only about 3 or 4 that we've covered. So if you could come back, you might get a phone call from me to nudge you nearer the time, but anything like that would be helpful.
I assume you have the first bus.
I'm not sure. Yes, I think they are on the list. Yeah.
The largest bus companies.
Yes. So all the big bus companies are coming. It's more to do with the community level.
I've only got 2 bus companies, G&G.
Right. Well, they're both included already. But as Tina and others have come out with, there are other groups that do run intermediate services at a community level, and it would be nice to have some representation from them in each of the different areas, both rural and urban, because there's going to be a difference, and we're sort of working out the questions and how the 2 working groups and brainstorming sessions are going to work.
David?
Could I just clarify? The date which was put in my diary originally said that it was going to be a Teams meeting, and that that was what was put in my diary, Chairman. I didn't put it in there.
Right, okay.
It was put in as a Teams meeting, which I think would be totally inappropriate, and it's down as a 6-hour meeting.
Yeah.
So what can I just clarify? What date are we now moving this to?
Right, so it was going to be the 21st of January,
I've
which
got
is
that.
next Friday. That's not happening now.
Yeah.
We're going to move it to the 21st of February.
23rd.
So the bus inquiry day will be the 21st of February. The date of the next proper committee meeting will be the 28th of February.
Yeah. So this meeting is going to be, yeah.
So you can remove that one from your calendar. Yeah, Jonathan will take it out. So the 21st of January, you've all got a free day to do whatever you want now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you haven't got a free day now on the 21st of February.
Yeah. Okay, so is everyone happy with that? Yes? So we've moved that, Jonathan, and that everyone's happy with that. Quickly.
Yeah. Just want to say, obviously, members are and non-council members are also. We hope will attend that day, because we do need to come out with some sort of input into the strategy to help the county to be able to spend what money we might get through the VISUP confirmation once we have it. I don't think we can put it back any further than the 21st of February. So we still may be in that position, knowing the government of not knowing. But I think we should at least give it the opportunity for us to have that figure at that meeting. And if you can, please invite anyone that you think is appropriate to that meeting. We do want some good active working sessions.
Through Jonathan, of course, because
Yes, through
obviously he's
Jonathan.
sending the invites out.
So the two that
To Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah.
Let Jonathan know before you leave today. You were asked to come to today's meeting with some suggestions, and so thank you again for it. So if you've got any ideas, just let Jonathan know before you leave today or by email later.
And just for a little bit of excitement, lunch will be provided on that day. So you haven't got to bring your snack box with you. We are probably haven't. Well, let's not go there.
Yeah. No bottles, please.
So you've got the date of the next meeting. Sorry, Mr. Metcalfe.
Chair, this is just a very simple one. The Statutory Advisory Council for Religious Education produces an annual report, which is a statutory document which goes out to all schools. May I ask that the Scrutiny Committee receives this just for information and to ask questions if they'd like to?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Due to be published, well, it has to be ready by the deadline of December the 31st. So Staffordshire has produced its most recent annual report ready for the...
So if you can make sure Jonathan's got it then, and he will forward it out to us all.
Thank you.
Sorry? No.
We are in.
Yeah. Okay, so there is no exclusion of the public required on item 10. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Now, I was only going to say, Chairman, that I've just checked in my diary for the 28th of February, and I see that at 9:30 in the morning, we've got an HS2 Phase 1 member briefing session. Is that one to this committee, or is it a separate?
I haven't got that, Jonathan.
Well, at 9:30 in the morning, and then I'm still here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
It's not something
Thank
I've
you,
arranged,
Chair.
Chairman, whether it's a member event that's, I can check.
Yeah.
Okay, 28th of
28th of February, we have an HS2 briefing
Okay.
meeting.
No, I've not got it.
It's
Just you
with
then,
David,
Just you
who's,
then.
I think, caught the meeting, looking at it now.
Okay, we can check that and
check,
we can get
yeah.
that out.
Well, I'm just stuck with being here for the day.
Yeah, at least you're going to get lunch. But no, you won't get on any lunch on the 28th. Bring your own on that day. So I'll now close the meeting at 16:20, and thank you for your attendance today. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.